So in terms of the 32 parts of the body, you can't see your brain, your lungs, intestines, etc. So that when you think about it, when you want to contemplate your brain, your lungs, then that idea is there, that thought is there. But it is that, so now I'm attending that thought, and then I'm picking up the sign of those things.
Yeah, well, there's a difference there. That's exactly the only way people would approach this. The only way they would know how is through attending. In other words, they will be attending that thought as if that's really attending to your brain, which you can't. So the only way to see these body parts correctly in the relevant contemplation manner is indirectly, without attending them directly as objects of your attention. You have to discern them as that because of which you are here living, attending to things. So that's the difference when people do, well, that's the difference between doing the body contemplation rightly and wrongly. Wrongly is basically just repeating these parts and visualizing them and thinking that somehow, I mean, it might provide you initial kind of reduction of sensual craving, because you never think about those things, but very soon you'll get used to it and it will become meaningless. Because you can't see those things directly. That's why in Paticamuppada the Salayatana, the sixth sense base, is the ultimate indirect, it's the ultimate peripheral, it's the ultimate that because of which there is the world for you. You are perceiver, you are the conceiver of it. That's why when the when the Buddha describes these the sixth sense base, it's described in that almost external medical manner, the fleshy eye, the nose, and so on. Because that's the closest you can see it. You can't see it directly. You cannot attend to your eye. You can only attend to the object. But that's not the eye because of which you see things. But you misconceiving it, that's the eye because of which you see things, you start assuming that you can attend that because of which your attention is there. So you have to stop trying to attend the eye, the nose, but start discerning it as a basis, as a physical basis for the world to exist for you.
But then,
so in the same sense, like you can be attending at the cup, attending at the table, attending at the image of your brain. But you're just regarding these things as overly objectified objects of your attention, so to speak. In a way, they have something in common. They are all material. But you don't want to regard your brain just as you regard a cup, because cup is insignificant to you. You want to discern that objective brain that you are thinking about is the reason for your subjectivity, because of which you are able to attend to the idea of the brain in the first place.
So what you just said there, I must keep saying that to myself, and again say that to myself.
Well, you might have to initially to remind yourself to kind of recreate the right order of things, that you can dwell on it. But after a while you don't have to. After a while it will be enough just to, because you will know how to look indirectly. You will know how to see things without having to look at them. And that's another thing. I think people might misunderstand in these the talks on YouTube and stuff, when we mention, the simultaneous presence. People might end up thinking it's like two things at the same time, momentarily present in front of me. But when I say simultaneous presence, the way the suttas talk about it, it's basically two things are present on two different levels. Which means they're not there equally present at the same time for a second or two, and you must catch them both at the same time. No, you're just trying to catch one thing. Again, you can divide it into millions of subparts. Your attention is still looking at that foreground of an object. So when we talk about simultaneous presence, that's why I keep saying it endures. The peripheral endures, which means in this case, say you have an image of your brain that you don't overly attend as a random object in the world, that you tell then to yourself, see, this body is not mine. No, you see that image of the brain, you stop misconceiving it, as the Buddha would say, and you start discerning it, that's the closest. The closest you can get to that which actually your life depends upon, to that form. The closest you can get is through these images of the brain, lungs, heart, blood, and so on. You realize all of them stand for that because of which you are conscious here living this life. But you can't possibly enter that brain, as in access it through your perception or anything like that, because it precedes it. But you can know that the image of the brain that you have, that on that peripheral level, is that because of which you're able to, again, be here and now, present, and attend to these various other things that arise. In other words, then when you stop thinking about the brain, your knowledge that that's the order of your experience, as in you are undermined by the matter, doesn't change. And that's what I mean, it's simultaneously present. You don't have to keep you can forget about it rightly. It will basically constitute rightful forgetfulness, which is when your forgetfulness does not induce avidya anymore. But you don't have to keep thinking. It's impossible to keep thinking about everything all the time.
Yeah, that's what I think sometimes you have to do. You have to, because you can't really think. Okay, brain.
Exactly. Because you just keep then forcing it into the foreground, and then you fail to see what the peripheral there is, which means you have now overly misconceived that brain, and you're making it into an object of your perception, which is impossible for it to be. Yeah. I cannot see itself.
But because one wants to develop...
So, let me just say it like this, I wanted to add this.
Yeah.
So, like, say you think about the brain rightly, peripheral, you discern the image of the brain and you recognize there is the brain in here, because of which my experience still exists. And then you stop thinking about it. And then 3 hours later, you think about it again. And it's important here to induce the attitude if you have to. Eventually, you will recognize it as such. It's important when 3 hours later you think about the brain again, you recognize that it's the same brain that has been here this whole time. The fact that you forgot about it did not make it not there. So then even like with moods or feelings, say you have a present mood arisen, it's sort of, I don't know, agreeable, but then you start attending to more particular things, and then you don't go around thinking how agreeable your day is. But then later, 4-6 hours later, you sort of look back and you remember it again, that it's agreeable. It's the same mood. And that's what I mean, you have to let it endure. Basically, that means that when you bring it back, you don't make it yours, but you recognize it as it has been enduring on its own. That's how you start discerning the simultaneous principle I'm talking about. Simultaneous in the sense that, yeah, the general mood, the general notion of the matter being there, for example, in the contemplation of the body, it's been there enduring on its own, whether you thought about it or not. So when you do remember, you will eventually stop giving priority to, I remember this, and I'm attending this, and now I'm practicing this. You just find it.
Yeah.
So it's simultaneously present with everything else you do when you don't attend to that. It's the necessary basis, basically, for your action, for your choice, for your attention.
But when can you, because obviously you want to develop the domain, as you say, you want to develop the domain, that background domain.
Mm-hmm.
So one wants to then develop it. Like, okay, I've got nothing to do now.
Okay.
I'm going to develop that, but then
So
I
you
think about it
develop
a
it
while,
by
and then I
learning.
forget about it.
Yeah, you develop it by learning how to discern that it's already there.
Sure, but then
you have to forget about it.
yeah, after a minute.
After a minute, that's fine. Then when you remember about it, you want to abandon the attitude of, I must restart this practice because I forgot about it. But instead, you want to develop recognition. Oh, yeah, it's still there. That's pretty much the crucial difference that I'm talking about, because many people say, be here now, be present, just feel, just this, it's just like that and whatnot. But it all revolves, just come back to the present moment, come back to the present moment. You want to recognize that when you come back to the present moment, You could only do so because it was there enduring beforehand.
It was always there.
So then you realize you can't forget about it even if you want. You are responsible for your own ignorance because you are responsible for the attitude of thinking it's on you to hold it in front of you and that's the only way of existing. So you forget about it after a minute, then you remember it after 5 minutes, and then you think, oh crap, I forgot about it. I must do it again now. As if you are the one who does it from the scratch. No. So each time that attitude arises, you include that attitude in that mindfulness as well. It's not rooted in you, it's rooted in the enduring background. And that's what the mind is, by the way, the ultimate background. The Chittanimita. And that's why he knows the mind as exalted or as shrank or as depressed or as elated. These states that people obviously almost automatically appropriate are the states of mind. As such, it endures. 5 days later, you remember it again. The only reason you can remember it is because it's still there enduring to some extent. And what will that do? This kind of practice of mindfulness, you cannot just, you can't be treading water with it. If you keep doing it, it is forcing you basically to shift the center of your experience from your sense of self onto the background of the things and even the actual things that you're attending, because you realize that they're there because of the background. In other words, you start squeezing your own sense of self out. There is no room for it in the experience. Because whether you look at the background, whether you're attending the foreground, you realize it can be done so only because these things endure on their own beforehand. And in terms of the peripheral, as I said, 6 days later you remember something, it's because for 6 days it's been enduring there. The state of mind. So that's how you stop worrying about, I must not forget, I must not forget. But instead start focusing on, I must discern whenever I remember. I must not misconceive whenever I remember. And the most fundamental misconceiving is mine. As in, I am here, the center, not this thing that I remember because of which I am in the first place.
So whatever your mind, whatever you attend to at any given time, that must induce a remembering of the way things are.
Well, you don't
possible.
even have to say that. You can just say whatever you attend to, just be aware of what you're doing. So include yourself in that picture. And that where that sense of self is, that's already where the background is. But now, instead of sort of feeling that each time you remember you must restart and then hold as long as you can, you drop that whole attitude or stop paying attention to it. But instead, whenever you remember, even if it's once a day, on a day that you are very distracted, you still don't try to now I remember I must hold it. No, I remember it as already there, arisen beforehand, not mine, not for me, not myself, cannot be mine. And that automatically affects everything else within that background, within that peripheral. But it's going to take time to see that, because now the emphasis is on what I attend. That's what matters. So that's where you try to keep, okay, so I'm attending onto this, I'm attending onto this. Then you forget, then you think, oh, now I have to do it again. No, you don't. Because the only reason you can attend to anything is because it's there given as an option, which means it exists on the peripheral, where the possibilities exist. So practically speaking, you think about your brain, your heart, your lungs. You can attend to it directly if you want, but don't misconceive it. Don't think that it's that really which heart is. It's an approximation that you determine whether it's going to be right if you don't misconceive it, or wrong if you misconceive it. So practically you think about, there is this brain, there are these bones, there are these sinews, there is this flesh. And that is the reason for me being able to look at these bones, sinews. So once you start attending to it correctly, there is the heart, the lungs and so on. That's it. You don't have to try to keep it in front of you, because it's not in front of you. You're looking at that which determines your experience as you know it. The necessary condition for it, which is presence of the matter. So once you brought it to your mind, you do so in order to let it go. You don't have to, you want to learn how not to have to actively think about it in order for it to be regarded as it's present, it's real. So you think about these various parts of the body as the reason for your experience, and then you let it be. And then say you're still mindful of it. Like we can do it now. Think about your heart. And then give it a significance in the sense of don't just think about like a picture of a heart, but think your beating heart right now. That you can actually feel beating. Do you have any volitional power over it? Can you tell it to slow down? Can you tell it to speed up? No. Can you tell it to stop? Can you tell it to never stop? Can you tell it to not get sick? Can you tell it to not get blocked and clogged up? None of it, which means it's utterly inaccessible to you. Yet, now at the same time, think about what if that heart were to stop now? Would you be able to remain alive? You wouldn't. So your whole life right now, while we're talking about, depends on something, well basically depends on your heart in the same sense that it depends on a random ticking clock in the world that you have no control over. That ticking clock stops, your heart basically stops. That's what it is. And that's it. So you don't have to like, I must keep attending this, I must keep... Now you already set up the experience, allow it to endure. So now your mind might move further. There's a cup of tea or coffee. But if I ask you now, 15 seconds later, the perception of the significance of your heart that has been now left to drift into that peripheral, it's still there. You haven't forgot it. Because I haven't forgot it. Because we've been talking about it together. And we can be silent a bit longer, talk about something else. But actually see, there is still a thread there. The heart which we spoke about like 30 seconds ago now, that phenomenon is still there. We are not attending to it, yet it's still there. You haven't completely lost it. And then the time will come when you will completely lose it. And that's the important point.
Or forget about it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When you forget about it. When you go back to it, you go back to it in the same manner as it is enduring now. Not as something I must overly attend this. No, it's already there. It's already determination for your life. Whether you tell to yourself that or not, doesn't matter. So you want to stop having to tell that to yourself, and you want to start learning how that thing will tell it to you. Because things are genuinely impermanent, and cannot be owned, and cannot be controlled. But you can't see that because you depend on you telling yourself that things are genuinely impermanent, cannot be owned, and so on. So yeah, you have to start like that, but you have to see that it has to come from the thing, not from you. And you will see that if you allow things to endure. So, it's been a minute and a half now. The perception of the significance of the heart is still there, isn't it? It faded, but it's still there. That background connection, so to speak, hasn't been lost. Although we already went through 3 different topics on top of it. But it's still there. It's still enduring on the general peripheral level. In both our minds, actually. You know. That's my whole point. It's not like some, I don't know, spiritual, intuitive knowledge. No, it's the clarity of phenomena. You know, no, that's what we've been talking. It's enduring there. You can attend to all sorts of things, but that thing is still there. On its own. That's the important bit. That's how you stop putting the emphasis, that's how you shift it onto the phenomena that has arisen and enduring, not onto me attending it. That's how you place yourself second, basically. And when the sense of self is second, it's not a sense of self anymore. Sense of self is always the first, the master. So in the background of your mind, the perception of the significance of the beating heart, we spoke about it, is it still there? It is, isn't it? It's not gone. And there hasn't been a single active effort made. I must bring this back. No. But what we did do is clarify the significance of it. And now it's enduring. You set it up rightly and now it's enduring. And it's still there actually. All this time it's persisting. The same thing is persisting while it's changing on all this particular level through discussing all these various things. And that's what I mean. things we're discussing now are simultaneously present with the background that's enduring. That it's a different thing from them. They change at different speed, but they're simultaneously there. They don't connect, they don't merge, they're simply two things standing. One in the background from where you look, which means if your attention looks at one side, it's going to be on the other side. That's just how it works. That's why you can choose sides. That's why you can look at this or at that. Because the options are given.
But now I might start thinking about other things, whatever.
You start thinking about the other things, you use the same principle of allow your mind to get established upon the significance of that peripheral and then let it go. Let your mind think other things. See now, is there still significance of the heart present? It is. And I know it is. I know it is in your mind as well. And I can't enter your brain and read your mind. But I can see the phenomena that we established. But what it did change a bit. It faded even more now. Because our topics are taking us further from it. So we keep introducing the new significance. And then what's going to happen is, when you look back and think about the significance of the heart, it's going to arise as a memory. As in the enduring phenomena has ceased. And then you realize now you have the experience of what was the enduring phenomena, which now is enduring. And that's how the same significance of these perceptions can be re-established at a finger snap. Because you don't have to go through the same motions and methods to it's already implied in it. You just need to clarify your discernment. It's still there.
So you have to keep on topic. Would you say you have to keep on topic if you were trying to?
To the extent, yeah, but basically establishing that significance rightly would sort of create that enduring context. But you don't have to keep, this is the context, this is the context, this is the context, context. No, it's there. You let it endure. And then what do I do then? You don't do anything. You let your mind think. Just make sure it doesn't go into sensuality, ill will and cruelty. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just prevent it from going there. If it doesn't want to go there, you don't have to do anything. That's how you make your own sense of self redundant.